My parents tried to give away my 11-year-old dog because my niece is allergic, so I moved out that night and took my $3,400 rent with me. They say home is where the heart is. For me, it became a battleground where my own family tried to evict the one creature who loved me unconditionally. They didn't realize that day, by trying to vote my dog out of my life, they were actually voting me out of theirs. I walked into my own living room, and the scent of lemon cleaner hit me first, sharp, artificial, totally out of place. Then I saw it, my mom, standing by the coffee table, holding a printed rehoming checklist like she was about to return a faulty appliance. My dad was slumped in my armchair, arms crossed, his eyes already looking tired, already checked out. "Your niece is allergic," Mom announced, her voice flat. "We found a nice family. They have a yard." I looked down at Cooper. My golden retriever, 11 years old, gray around the muzzle, his tail thumping a soft, hopeful rhythm against the floor. He didn't understand. My dad just sat there, didn't even blink. "It's for the baby," he said. "And we're on the lease, too." "You're outvoted." "Outvoted? In my own home?" My voice came out calmer than I felt. "This is my apartment." My mom lifted her chin, defiant. "It's our family's apartment. You'll get over it." I didn't argue. I didn't say another word. I just walked to my bedroom, grabbed Cooper's leash, his worn canvas bag of meds, and started moving. Fast. Like a fire drill was sounding in my head. 10 minutes later, I walked out with him trotting happily beside me, my keys in my pocket. I wasn't leaving anything behind they could use as leverage. I was 32 then. For years, I'd been the responsible one. The Rock. A project manager for a medical device distributor in Portland. Not glamorous, no, but it was steady. My days started at 6:15 a.m. with a black coffee, checking a calendar crammed with people who all thought their emergency was the only one on earth. My life was autopay, utilities, insurance, rent, Cooper's senior wellness plan, even my IRA contributions. I loved the comfort of seeing paid in neat little rows. Cooper was the one beautiful, messy thing I was proud of. I got him in college. My roommates convinced me I needed something warm and loyal to keep me from studying myself into an early grave. He was with me through my first post-grad studio, my first layoff scare, my first breakup that felt like a demolition. When my mom would say, "It's just a dog," I'd just smile and change the subject. I didn't have the energy to explain that he wasn't just anything. He was everything. The apartment situation started innocently enough, with a temporary plan. My parents had moved to Oregon from Arizona 4 years earlier. My dad's construction job dried up, and my mom decided she was done with the heat and dust. They didn't arrive with a cushion, they arrived with a U-Haul, 2 recliners, and the quiet expectation that I would help until they got on their feet. At first, it was small. A few grocery runs. An extra phone line on my plan. A one-time loan of $1,200 for a security deposit they promised to pay back when Dad started working again. Then my sister, Kelsey, had her daughter, Avery, and everything in my family reorganized around that baby like a solar system. Kelsey was the golden child, always had been. She was also the loudest, with a way of saying, "I need help," that made it sound like a moral test. 2 years after my parents moved in, my landlord sold the building. My lease was ending. I found a newer place, a 2-bedroom on the east side, near my office, with elevator access so Cooper didn't have to do stairs. The rent was expensive, but I could manage it alone. Then Dad said, if we could just stay with you for a few months, we could save. I made a spreadsheet. I always make a spreadsheet. I wrote out the numbers: rent, parking, utilities, pet rent, what I could realistically cover without touching my emergency fund. I told them I'd pay the rent, they could cover groceries and utilities while they got settled. Then they asked if they should be official on the lease, just in case, because Dad's credit was better than mine, which it absolutely was not, and landlords like stability. I said yes. I was tired, and I honestly thought having them on paper would make them act more carefully, not more entitled. The first month went fine. The second, Mom started buying house things without asking: new curtains, a lamp, a decorative mirror. She'd leave the receipt on the counter like a silent accusation. The third month, Dad started using my parking spot because his back can't do the walk. When I pointed out the lease listed only one spot, he just said, "We're family." But the real pattern, the truly insidious one, was money. My contribution wasn't a casual split. It morphed into me covering the bulk while everyone treated it as a shared resource, a bottomless well. Example 1 Dad's car broke down. He needed $2,600 for repairs or he couldn't work. I paid the shop directly because I didn't trust cash. 2 weeks later, I noticed the shop had only billed $2,040. When I asked about the difference, he mumbled something about finding something else later and changed the subject. I never saw another invoice. Example 2 Mom convinced me to add them to my renter's insurance. "So we're all covered," she said. My premium went up by $38 a month. Then, she casually mentioned she'd filed a claim for a cracked phone after she dropped it in the kitchen sink. She didn't ask first. My rates didn't jump immediately, but that claim notice in my email felt like a slap. Example 3 I'd been sending my parents money each month to help with expenses. It started at $800. Then it became $1,500 when Dad said his hours were cut. Then, without a formal conversation, it became me covering whatever they decided they couldn't spare. The difference between the rent and whatever they felt like contributing. In practice, it was $3,400 a month on average when you added rent, utilities, and the groceries I inevitably bought because no one else did. Example 4 Kelsey started showing up at the apartment like it was a daycare center. Just for an hour, she'd say, dropping Avery off with Mom while she ran errands. She'd be gone for 5 hours. Once she left a bag of special hypoallergenic food for the baby and said, "Can you Venmo me for this? It's expensive." It was $147. I paid it. It was easier than fighting. Example 5 Dad asked me to co-sign for a small credit card to rebuild his credit. I said no. So he got Mom to ask. When I still refused, they sighed like I just refused to donate an organ. "After everything we've done for you," Mom said, her voice dripping with disappointment. I remember thinking, "You mean after everything I've done for you, I tried boundaries?" I really did. The way the internet suggests, calm talks, clear expectations, I statements. I told them I needed a written budget if we were going to keep living together. Dad laughed. Mom said budgets were cold. Kelsey said I was counting pennies like a miser. The flashbacks that still play in my head aren't traumatic scenes, not really. They're small, quiet moments where I realized my place in the family. Like the Tuesday night I came home late, exhausted, and found Cooper's water bowl empty and his meds untouched on the counter. Mom had been home all day. "Oh," she said, looking up from her phone, "I forgot. I was on FaceTime with Avery." Or the time I got a message from my landlord about a noise complaint. It was my dad watching a game with his friends, the TV blasting. When I asked him to keep it down, he barked, "It's our home, too. Stop acting like you're the warden." Or the afternoon I opened a mail envelope and saw a notice addressed to all leaseholders about a rent increase coming in 60 days. I had never gotten those notices before because I was the one who managed the portal. Seeing their names on the paper made my stomach sink. It wasn't just help anymore. They were anchored in my housing like barnacles. When Kelsey announced she was bringing Avery to stay for a couple of weeks because her boyfriend's roommate had cat hair everywhere, I said no. Politely, but firmly. And that's when the allergy story appeared, like a sudden, ugly weapon. It wasn't even Avery. It was my niece's new boyfriend's sister's toddler, someone I'd met once at a barbecue, who, according to my mom, couldn't breathe around dogs. Mom said Kelsey wanted to come over more often, and it would just be kinder if Cooper was with someone who can give him what he needs. I asked for a doctor's note. I asked why the solution was giving away my dog instead of not inviting allergic people into my home. Dad just threw his hands up. "You always make everything complicated." Mom cut me off, "You're choosing a dog over family." That night, the night of the printed rehoming checklist, was the first time they actually said the quiet part out loud, outvoted. What they didn't realize, though, was that I'd already been collecting my own evidence. Not because I wanted to fight, but because I'd learned the hard way that memories get rewritten in my family. 3 days before the dog ultimatum, I'd gotten an alert from my bank. An attempted payment was scheduled for my checking account for $1,180 to a storage facility I didn't recognize. It was labeled like one of my autopays, but it wasn't mine. I opened my banking app and saw a new payee added, Evergreen Storage Unit. I didn't have a storage unit. I called the bank. "Did you authorize this payee addition?" the representative asked. "No," I said, and my voice did that cold, distant drop it does when something truly awful clicks into place. They blocked the payment. Then I checked my email and found a confirmation, sent 2 hours earlier, like it assumed I was the one who did it. Same bank, same account. It meant someone had access. I went into the apartment's shared desk drawer, where my mom kept important papers. There, tucked away, was a folder. Inside? My bank's letters. Not landlord stuff, my bank stuff. And printed screenshots of my account summary. The most recent one was from last month. Someone had been monitoring me. That was my breaking point. But I didn't react. I got quiet. I took Cooper on a long walk and thought, like I think at work, gather facts. Build a timeline. Protect the system. When I got home, I didn't confront anyone. I went into my bedroom, pulled out my laptop, and started a file. I wrote down dates and amounts from the last 12 months, the rent payments, the utility autopays, the times I transferred money to my parents, the shared expenses I'd covered. I exported my bank transactions into a CSV and highlighted anything that wasn't mine. There were more than I expected: 2 small purchases at a pharmacy near my parents' favorite diner, a $64 subscription I'd never signed up for, and a $312 Cash App transfer labeled with my mom's initials. None of it would bankrupt me, but it was the principle. They felt entitled to my access. Then I checked the lease portal. That's where I found the confirmation that made my hands go cold, a renewal request submitted under my login, asking to add Kelsey as an authorized occupant starting the following month. The request had been sent to the property manager. I hadn't done it. I took screenshots of everything. The portal request, the bank payee addition attempt, the printed account summaries in that hidden folder. I emailed copies to myself into a new, encrypted folder with a password no one would ever guess. I changed every password I had to my phone, my laptop, my bank, my email, turning on 2-factor authentication for all of it. I called my bank and asked them to remove any device authorizations I didn't recognize. The representative read off a device registered 2 weeks ago. It wasn't mine. I froze. They flagged it, locked my online access for 24 hours while they reset credentials, and recommended I file an identity theft report if anything else showed up. I didn't need drama. I needed control. I also called the leasing office. I asked a simple question: if I move out, am I still liable if my parents stay? The property manager was honest. All leaseholders are jointly responsible unless the lease is rewritten. Okay, I said, my voice steady. How do we rewrite it? She told me the process: a written request, proof of income for the remaining tenants, and approval by management. It could take up to 10 business days. Until then, everyone on the lease was liable. That night, after the dog ultimatum, I knew exactly what my plan was. I would remove my money from the shared situation, and I would remove my name from any legal tie I could without doing anything reckless. I wasn't going to sabotage them. I was going to stop carrying them. I packed quietly. No drama, no loud arguments. I moved my essentials first: laptop, documents, Cooper's food and meds, my folder of receipts, and the fireproof envelope where I kept my passport and car title. I left the furniture I'd bought. I didn't want a scene over a couch. I took pictures of my room and the shared spaces for my own records. Then, I called a friend and asked if I could crash for a week. At 1:12 a.m., I texted my parents from my car. I've moved out with Cooper. I'll communicate about the lease through the property manager. My mom replied immediately, "So, you're abandoning us?" I didn't respond. The next morning, I called the bank again. I opened a new checking account and redirected my paycheck deposit. I removed all autopays from the old account. I set the old account to manual only and moved the remaining balance out. I didn't close it yet, I wanted a clean record for any disputes. Then I called my credit card company and removed my parents as authorized users, something I'd added temporarily when Dad said he needed it for gas. The representative read back the address tied to the card, my old apartment. Not my new mailing address. I updated that, too. By noon, I had a consultation scheduled with a tenant rights attorney. It wasn't about evicting anyone. It was about making sure I didn't make a mistake that could follow me for years. The attorney, calm and matter-of-fact, told me to do everything in writing. If you pay another month, it implies consent, she said. If you want out, you need a paper trail. So, I sent a formal email to the property manager requesting a lease modification, removing myself as of the next rent cycle. I attached proof that I'd vacated, a written statement, my new mailing address, and a copy of the moving company receipt for a small storage locker I'd rented for my things. I didn't mention the dog. I didn't mention the betrayal. I kept it procedural. The property manager replied with the same sentence, repeated twice, "Your parents will need to qualify on their own." They couldn't. Within 48 hours, the calls started. First, my dad, leaving a voicemail like he was doing me a favor. "We can talk like adults. Come home. You're making this harder than it needs to be." Then Kelsey, with her soft voice that always came with a knife. "Avery keeps asking where you are. Mom is crying. Why are you doing this?" Then my mom, escalating. "You can't just cut us off. We're on the lease. That means you still have to pay. That's the law." I sent one text, one time. "Please direct anything about rent or the lease to the property manager. I'm not discussing Cooper." My attorney sent a letter the next day, certified mail, signature required, stating that I had vacated, that any further financial contributions were voluntary, and that all communication should go through counsel if they continued to harass me. The letter wasn't aggressive. It was a boundary in formal language. The rent was due on the 1st. I didn't send my usual transfer. I didn't log into the portal. I did nothing. On the 2nd, my dad texted, "We're short. Send what you always send." I responded, "I'm no longer contributing." He called. I didn't answer. On the 3rd, my mom texted a screenshot of the rent portal, showing past due in angry red, and wrote, "Look what you did." I stared at it for a full minute, then deleted it. Because what I did was stop being their safety net. The consequences were theirs to manage. By day 5, the pressure turned into bargaining. "We'll keep the dog," Mom said in a voicemail. "Just come back." We were stressed. We didn't mean it. Kelsey sent, "If you pay this month, we'll figure out a plan." Dad tried a different angle. "You're ruining your credit, too. Do you want an eviction on your record?" That one was the only message that got a response, because it was true. While my name was still on the lease, I had exposure. I forwarded the text to my attorney. She replied with one sentence, "Do not engage. We're working the modification. Let management enforce their process." The property manager gave my parents a deadline, submit proof of income within 72 hours, or management would issue a notice to cure or quit under the lease terms. That notice arrived on day 8. My mom called me 26 times in one afternoon. I didn't answer. I blocked her number for 24 hours, then unblocked it, because I wanted to see what they were trying. I turned her texts into a record, not a conversation. 2 weeks later, the lease modification was denied. My parents couldn't qualify without my income. Management offered them 2 options, find a cosigner, not me, or move out at the end of the month. That was when my dad showed up at my office. He waited in the lobby, like a man who expected the world to let him in. My receptionist messaged me, "Your father is here. He says it's urgent." I walked down, met him by the glass doors, and kept my voice level. "This isn't the place," I said. He looked older than I remembered, but his posture was the same. "You have to fix this," he said, his voice raw. "You can't do this to your mother." "I didn't do anything," I replied, looking him straight in the eye. "You chose this." His face tightened. "You're really going to throw us out over a dog?" "I'm not throwing you out," I said. "The landlord is." I moved out. I stopped paying. That's it. He stared at me like he didn't recognize me anymore. Which was fine. I didn't recognize the version of him that thought he could vote my dog out of my life. He left without another word. 3 months later *, my parents didn't get evicted. Technically. They moved out before the final deadline, into a smaller 2-bedroom in a complex farther out where the rent was lower. They had to pay a higher deposit because of the late notice on the old lease, $2,900. And according to an email my mom accidentally CC'd me on when she complained to the property manager, Kelsey didn't move in with them like she'd planned. She went back to her boyfriend's place and started sending my mom long texts about being unsupported. The bank investigation closed 2 small disputed charges in my favor, the $64 subscription and the $312 Cash App transfer, after I provided proof I wasn't the one who authorized them. They didn't call it fraud in the letter, but they reversed the amounts and advised me to keep my accounts separate. I printed the letter and added it to my folder anyway. My parents tried twice to schedule a family meeting. The first time, my mom sent a group chat message, "We need to clear the air." I left the chat without replying. The second time, my dad emailed me a list of things you owe us, including a line item for emotional distress. I forwarded it to my attorney and didn't respond. Cooper adjusted faster than I did. He loved my friend's backyard during that first week. And when I found a new 1-bedroom with a small patio, he claimed it like he'd been waiting for it his whole life. 6 months later, final update, I signed a new lease. In my name only. I paid the deposit, $1,250, without asking anyone for help. And when the leasing agent asked if anyone else needed to be on the paperwork, I smiled. "No," I said, "just me." My credit report stayed clean. No eviction, no collections, no surprises. The old lease account showed as closed with a 0 balance after my parents moved out and settled their final fees. I kept the email confirmation as proof and put it in the same folder as everything else, because I don't trust that my family will remember it accurately if they ever need a villain again. My relationship with my parents became smaller. We spoke twice on the phone in 6 months. The conversations were polite and shallow, like talking to coworkers you don't quite trust. Kelsey stopped texting after I didn't respond to her last message, asking if I could help with Avery's preschool registration fee for $480. I left it on read. The silence that followed was almost peaceful. Last week, I found that printed rehoming checklist in a box I'd accidentally taken from the apartment, a stack of papers my mom must have left behind. I didn't shred it in anger. I didn't mail it back with a note. I just folded it once, put it in my sealed folder, and slid it into the back of my closet where I keep documents I never want to need but refuse to forget. That night, Cooper slept with my foot like he always had. In the morning, I deleted a recurring calendar reminder labeled "Send Rent Split" and watched the screen go blank. It was a small thing, a tiny square disappearing, but it felt like a door closing the way it's supposed to, quietly, firmly, and on my terms. Because, you see, a basic rule of respect was broken. In your home, no one gets to vote on what you love, or what you should sacrifice. My family acted like my stability was a shared resource, not the result of my work, my stress, and my responsibility. The most alarming part wasn't even the rehoming checklist. It was the access. My bank accounts. The lease portal. New payees added without permission. That's not where family. That's a dangerous habit of crossing boundaries and calling it normal. The lesson is simple: help needs limits, and temporary needs a deadline. Keep housing and money transparent and protected. Separate accounts, strong passwords, written agreements. And if your value to relatives only appears when your payment is due, that's a signal not to argue louder, but to quietly take back control.